Good morning. I want to give you a little bit of information about what's going on in the K-12 segment today and what we're going to see going forward this summer. First thing I'm going to start with It's interesting that you should mention that because I'm going to talk about that at the end.
All right, which end are we giving out?
Put the ticket in.
It's easier to ask for
Technical difficulties.
I see it, don't I?
Move to the left so the yes is highlighted. We had this problem earlier and we thought we had it corrected. There we go. Okay. That's one thing about IT folks, they can usually
I'm
overcome.
just kind of anal, so.
It's not quite like that in the education market with teachers. And those of you that are in the education market understand that. So I wanted to talk about E-rate. E-rate changed a lot this year. On May the 8th, the FCC authorized USAC, the company that administers E-rate for educational institutions, to fund every single approved application for 2015. That does not mean that all applications will be approved. There is a review process that they have to go through. They rolled over $1.575 billion of unused funds from previous years, projects that did not get completed. Plus the cap for 2015 is $3.9 billion. The first wave of funding commitment decision letters was mailed yesterday. It included both Category 1, which is telecommunications, and Category 2, which is internal connections. There was $6.8 million for schools in North Carolina, which is a good start to the E-rate cycle. Now I want to show you a graph. This is a cacti graph of bandwidth. We get our internet, every school in North Carolina gets their internet from NC-REN through NCNC. And we get it at no cost because of E-rate funding and matching funding at the state level. So that's a win-win situation for schools. Part of what NCNC does is they monitor the traffic at our schools. If we hit 95% of our bandwidth that they're providing to us, they will immediately up it to the next level. So Lenoir County Schools, for example, went from a 500 meg connection to a 1 gig connection March 31st because we had increased bandwidth. And here's a graph that demonstrates that. This is the student utilization, the average 95% percentile over time. It's a little hard to see the graph at the bottom, but it represents from April of 2014 until March of 2015. You will notice that in November there was quite a jump in the average utilization per student. That is the month that we rolled out 4,300 iPads to our K-5 students. Currently, NCNC is seeing 60% growth per year in the internet usage in public education in North Carolina. So when we plan, we have to plan for 60% growth every year. The other thing that's interesting You know, we've talked a lot about security at this conference. NCRIN also monitors DDoS attacks when we K-12 schools. And this is a graph that shows the rate at which they've been occurred over the last year. And you will see also in this graph a marked increase in the number of attacks. One of the interesting things about these two graphs, and I'm going to back up to this one. If you look at February, you'll notice that there's a huge drop in internet usage. And if you look at February on this graph, there's a huge drop in the number of attacks. Well, if you remember, February we had some winter weather, and schools missed several days in a row. And that's what affected these graphs. So it's interesting that the DDoS attacks went down when students were not in school. So what does that tell you? A lot of the attacks are coming from students who are at school trying to block their school system's websites. It's my understanding that for $6 and a credit card, you can buy a software program that will let you attack the servers that you know the IP address is for. And that's my update for K-12. Joseph.
Morning. All right, so the state of North Carolina has been doing a lot of things GIS related recently. So one really important thing I'd like to pass along, everyone just has to be really quiet, as loud as I'm getting, is back last year they actually adopted a state metadata policy for geospatial data, which is very important since a lot of GIS data is becoming open. You hear a lot about open sites where you can just go download GIS data, this kind of thing. So this metadata policy is very important. It's very simple to use. It does take just a few minutes to fill out the information. But you can actually visit the GICC website, and it tells you what's in it, gives you some information. And what I understand, the state's going to hopefully be providing some training sessions like that for folks to come ask questions, learn how to input the metadata, whether you're using Esri or an open source GIS. Another big topic is addressing. Creating a master address repository for the state. And this is very important. It ties back into the next generation 911. I know a lot of folks here have heard about next generation 911. If not, I'm pretty sure you'll hear about it very soon. So that's been going on, and they're trying to compile all of the addresses for North Carolina in one location and figure out a good way of updating that, keeping it current. The other thing is the ortho imagery project, aerial photos, as most of us know. It is wrapping up for this year, the western and kind of southwestern part of North Carolina. This has been funded by the North Carolina 911 board. And the good news is, this past February, the 911 board did approve funding for the next 4 years of ortho cars. So that's a wonderful thing. So if you have a chance to reach out to people like Richard Taylor or the 911 board in general and just say thank you, please do. It's huge. They do appreciate those kind of things. And that's part of what the local government committee at the state level has been doing, is trying to write letters and things like that, just saying, thank you. It's been a benefit to all counties in North Carolina. Another large project is the seamless parcel project that's going on. Just like the addressing project, the state is trying to compile all of the parcels for North Carolina in one database. As of right now, or as of May 13th, 92 counties have already uploaded their parcel information, and 8 others are in progress or to be scheduled. So they don't just have 100%, which is awesome. And they do have a way, and they're talking about, okay, how should we update this data and information and things like that. Here again, another great project. And just quickly, I just want to leave you with some other information, some resources. So this past February, the NCLGISA had its conference. All of the presentations are actually up on the website. The reason I tell you this is because there are presentations about next generation 911, seamless parcels, addressing the project. All these things I've touched on today. Please go take a look at those, just so you're aware of what's going on, especially with things with the next generation 911. Very important to kind of be in the loop, especially the IT folks. I know GIS is going to be involved, but it's only going to be maybe 10% of next generation. The rest is going to be back on the IT folks. So please take a look at that. The other thing is NC1 Map is a great resource for all these different data sets. You can also download all the aerial imagery for all the other counties. Also on NC1 Map, they do have web map services that you can pull in and use those within your mapping system. And the other thing I just want to touch on too was the local government committee has been really trying to talk about the value of GIS and the importance of it, things like that. So if you go to the GICC website, you'll see some places where local government committee is doing kind of like a one-page, two-page value of GIS. And they're talking about these topics, addressing single parcel, and how they can be beneficial to us at a local, county, municipal level to have the entire data set. Because as we know, whether I'm mapping out crime or dealing with other things, it doesn't necessarily stay within my county. Sometimes it goes across county lines. And so being able to quickly pull this data down so I can finish projects is valuable. And that is all that I have for GIS updates from the state.
Good morning. Hope everyone's enjoyed a great conference. The first note I wanted to make was Judy Ryan had to go back to Raleigh. There was one of her close personal friends passed away. She was attending a funeral. So from the county side, one of the notes that she wanted to make sure that everyone took back home was an announcement of the National Associations of Counties conference that's coming up in July. Some information that you want to make note of, take back to your county managers, county leaders. The dates of that is July 10th through the 13th. It's at the Charlotte Convention Center. Again, this is the National Association of Counties, and as I know from the municipal side, it's a big deal when North Carolina has a turn to host one of these national conferences. Many of the things I'm going to be talking about today, as it relates, I normally give a municipal update, I think pertains equally to folks on the county side as well as the K-12. And we talked about last up-to-the-minute updates. Literally, it is up-to-the-minute updates. I was just reading myself on some of the changes that were made. So the majority of my presentation over the next 15 minutes is going to be about the state budget, because that affects all of us. And the state budget, I was updating my slides just a few minutes ago because I said it's going to be likely that this proposal passed by the end of the week. Well, it passed actually early this morning, 1 a.m. So the House budget, this is the proposal, part of the biennial legislative process that will set the budget in course. So one of the goals that was met was the House budget passed early this morning. And you can see it was a 93-23 bipartisan vote. What you see with bipartisans is you're going to have a lot of comments from both sides that are upset with certain components of the budget. It is a $21 billion state spending plan. And definitely from the right side, and many of you know North Carolina is Republican controlled both in the House, Senate, and the governorship. On the far right, many are still upset that this increases the overall state budget spending by 6%. One of the changes that was a compromise late last night was a discussion about 2% raises for all state employees, which was teachers and state employees. Well, that actually was increased to 6% for teachers last night's part of the House budget. Again, this is still to go in front of the Senate, so more compromises is needed, but in the first phase of this process is a 2% raise for all state employees, but 6% for teachers, and includes some more textbook funding. So from the municipal side, and actually I'm going to pause on this last one because again I was taking some of these last minute updates. One of the comments that we've seen from the news reports early this morning is on the right side is that there are DMV fee increases, and I think that was a portion of contingency between the budget leaders and different members of the House as they were voting on this budget. So the DMV increases have actually went down to 30% increase. So there's still some individuals that feel from their constituency groups, 30% increase in DMVs certainly won't hurt some citizens in the state. So just want to make sure I didn't leave out that note. So what does this budget include? So there's definitely some good things that we like from the League of Municipalities that's good for the cities. Many of you remember that we're here in the city of Wilmington. This is a big film industry, contributes a lot to the economy in this area and statewide. And actually I'm talking about the second bullet here, I've jumped down, but that film incentive credit was stripped out a couple of years ago. So in this new budget, there are funds to be put back in for the film incentive credit. I believe that number, in looking at my notes here, was discussed this morning. It actually went down from 60 million to 40 million. So 40 million incentives are back into the film grant program. So there's good news for Wilmington. Jumping back up to the top, there was also some discussion about including historic rehabilitation tax credits. So the historic preservation credits have also been taken out of the budget in recent years. That has been added back, so we like seeing that. Helps economic development in distressed areas. More increases in money is going to a lot of environmental funds to help fund wastewater infrastructure grant programs, Main Street projects. And then one of the League's goals was to reduce utility costs, where there were issues where if DOT came in and did infrastructure improvements, many towns had to pay back DOT for that. So that has been at least corrected in this budget. Again, all this is a proposal. So on the bad, one of the things, and again from a citizen standpoint, I think this is good, there is a reduction in the gas tax. Many of you know in North Carolina we pay a very high gas tax. So this budget proposal includes lowering down the gas tax, but what it means bad for cities is we, the cities, receive revenues back from the gas taxes collected. So the shift of this is moving 5% over to the state, and we're upset about that. I've got some numbers on some following slides to detail that. So I talked about some of the things with the state budget in more detail. There was funding for police body cameras, and again, I made note this morning, $5 million was allocated to a fund for funding police body cams. There's also in some other discussions in the committee's House Bill 713 clarifies that video from police body cams and car dashboard cameras are going to be records of criminal investigations, are not public records. And then just the note on the third bullet is the Senate now has the budget in their hands. They start negotiations of making compromise between the House budget and the Senate budget. So that's where we're at in the timeline. So one of the things that's probably the most critical that I think affects everybody in the room is a fundamental shift around the discussions that are happening in Raleigh. And one of those is Senate Bill 369. It's called the Sales Tax Fairness Act. So what this is a shift from your local taxes that you pay, all of us in North Carolina pay, to become a state tax. Why that's important is when anything shifts to the state control, the state then can have the opportunity to use those funds as they see fit, and it might turn into situations where cities have to lobby or counties have to lobby to get that money back. So it is something that we see is a game changer across the board, funding that would be directly allocated to cities and counties going to state oversight. It is in a discussion phase right now, so it's not for a vote, but we list this as a critical item. You see, when you see some of these bills being introduced, you also see some alternative bills being introduced that take the discussion in a different angle. So one of those is actually a city-only sales tax option. So House Bill 903 is one of the League's membership's goals to have the ability to authorize cities to levy a sales tax that applies only within city borders and returned directly to the city. So I'm not going to read all of the details of this, and we're going to have a slide deck later, but just know that these are some of the discussions around how these sales taxes are levied. You're definitely going to read about this in the newspaper later this summer into the fall. Part of that sales tax issue is going to be geared around rural versus urban cities and just fairness. I think I actually have a slide on it here coming up. Let me fix just a bit. It's down the slide deck, I'll come to it, so just keep things in order. So 911 fees, this is another House Bill 730. It's one of the things, this is a city versus county issue where if you are a city resident, you live in a city and a county. Everyone in North Carolina does that. So when you pay your city taxes, you're getting double charged for some 911 services. So we're real happy to see this bill introduced and passed through committees that clearly states that you, the city residents, cannot be double charged for 911 services. Again, that's House Bill 730. If you support a PSAP, if you either work in a county that supports a public service answering point, or if you're a town that does dispatch, you remember that there was discussion about making sure that you have a backup PSAP facility and infrastructure to protect that, 911 calls. There was a mandate that had to be put in place by July 1st, 2016. So there is discussions, and I thought maybe I had the House bill listed here. I'll update that, make sure I got the bill indicated here. But this pushes back some of those delays just to say that you are in progress of doing that by the 16th. So expect that to continue, that these mandates of having that in place by 2016. I don't know how many of you have already started that or in progress. If you're in progress, good, you're going to be meeting the new language. But unless you have it in place by 2016, that's the old language. We'd love to improve that. Moving along, there was also a lot of discussion in Raleigh about lack of or minimizing the regulations around cities and towns, controlling what cities do with improvements around their community for aesthetics, and the league has always supported that should be a city's decision. You elect local officials to make those decisions of where you want to make improvements, where you don't. So we have seen that change in the last couple of years where the state wanted to basically minimize those aesthetic rules and lower the government regulation from the local level. So this is a bill, this is Senate Bill 25 that we are certainly supporting, that adds back that regulation of controlling what cities do in their various communities for community development. And this is talking about the style, roof color, location of windows and doors and things like that you want to put to create a community, a sense of community inside your town. We talked a little bit about the body cams. I was given the kind of the up-to-the-minute update. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this. Again, this designates that and clarifies that the video from the police, body, and car dashboard cameras are all under records of criminal investigations. Senate Bill 182 talks about the detail of automatic license plate readers. So it allows state law enforcement agencies to utilize these readers to assist in their investigation, puts a boundary on retentions, that the information, which is for Republic reporting requirements, is collected by the state and data or state retention standards. So this talks about that technology and puts some governance around that. Public records around law enforcement, home address, other information. We talked to the presenter, Kara, after the e-discovery session yesterday, and this is one of those areas that I think is good. So if the law enforcement is conducting some work and has information that is tied to his personnel records, this would allow a sworn law enforcement officer to request annually that their employer withhold certain personal information from the public records. It's designed around protecting victims in crime. So if there's no surrounding investigation, we want to make sure that that's not public records. So I think this is a good idea as well. Question? The question was what the reasoning is behind doing that annually. Quite honestly, I don't know why it's an annual request, other than maybe it's to put some sort of restriction, so it's just not a daily measure, just expunge everything and have it all go in and put a process in, expunge it Friday or Saturday or next week. So I'll find that answer out. So it's basically an annual request to make sure that any of that personnel information is stripped out. I don't know why it's annual versus weekly or monthly. It's a good question. Expiration of film tax credits. Again, we talked about this earlier. It's a restoration, so that 61 million states, again, that number's been reduced down to 40 million. And then we talked about the gas tax, the Powell bill. Again, this is some more detail around how our gas tax is structured from 33 cents a gallon and how that shift from Powell bill funding to collection funding mechanism goes into place. So as the gas tax is lowered, making sure that we got mechanisms to make sure that the funding for gas is funneled back to cities. And this is another transportation issue for providing relief to cities under the population of 50,000, which DOT is shifting some costs for the maintenance of roads over to the locals. We are promoting a mechanism where cities can shift that cost back to DOT so that is not fully borne by the locals. Again, I'm getting close to the end of the time, so I've got several more goals that we're going to talk about. So I encourage you, if you're interested in this, either see me afterwards or find the slide deck afterwards and you can dive into this detail. All of the bills that we have at the League, we do tracking, again, on the sales tax, and I thought I had a slide on here, I guess I don't, but what I was talking about earlier about that shift from the rural to cities, what that sales tax collection piece does is when you pay property taxes, you pay that based, and there's a formula based on where that goes, where that transaction occurred. So if we're all visiting down here in Wilmington. If I was to go over to Rice Beach, a hot dog and a hotel room, that sales tax actually would have been allocated towards Rice Beach because that's where the money was spent. Well, part of this new rule in this bill would actually take that, and the locality of where the transaction occurred would not go into effect. So it would be based on a per capita allocation across the state. So the goal was that citizens go to big cities or tourist sites to spend their monies, and that's not fair to all the citizens of North Carolina, so it's spread back out. So you can imagine, and we've done a lot of research in the area of the major shortfalls, and again, this is a municipal issue, so if you live in any size city where those transactions occur, you're going to lose significant revenues. So that would be shifted again back out to it. And the per capita funding, I mean, you can, it's all common sense. A lot of people live inside municipal borders, but a lot of people live outside. So certainly in the resort towns, major loss in revenues would be projected in the larger cities. So as you're reading about this bill play out over the summer and the fall, there'll be a lot of discussion around that rural versus city urban issue. But again, the root of the issue should be that we're worried that as moving this allocation into the state and putting that state control is not good for local governments in general. We like making sure that our local officials have that jurisdiction and governance over how those monies are collected. So, and again, this slide here, we have a lot of information on nclm.org, bill tracking, under our legislative advocacy section on the top of the web page. You can go down and drill down into any of these bills, find out who your representatives are, and contact them. And with that, I think I am out of time. Brad, I think we have a break coming up. Okay, so you're going to.
Thank you, Bill, Joseph, and Ron for the updates around the state this year. I just want to point out a couple other things that I have not recognized, I've failed to recognize, and the individuals have not come up here with an update. And one of those individuals is sitting in the back of the room, and it's our entertainment chair, that's Dante Patterson. He did a great job of Another group and a committee that was formed this year was our conference committee, and it's chaired by Jason Whitaker, that's also in the back of the room, but there's a lot of people that have been on that committee and done a great job to pull off this conference this year. With the committee members, the conference committee, mind standing up for me? I appreciate all the hard work. There we go. What's that? Oh, it's okay. And then I want to remind you, Chris Nymer, the Web and Marketing Committee Chair yesterday, pointed out that he'd like to try to get some videos. We're calling that the Voice of NCLGISA. And he'll be out at the break in just a moment, and he's got a camera set up. If anybody can stop by and give him just a few minutes of your time to provide some promotion for NCLGISA to our managers and other groups on our website. Next up, we're going to have a break, and then after the break, we're going to come back with Mark Holland as the roundtable with real-world records retention and IT's role. Mark Holland is he's a supervisor for the records analyst unit at the at the North Carolina Department of Cultural Resources. So take about 30 minutes here, and in the back of the room, as you leave out, if you have your surveys already filled out, there's going to be 3 stations, 2 people at each of those stations. One will be taking these surveys, and the other one will give you out the golden ticket for what comes up after the roundtable.